Can I, having never looked at it before, somehow complete the r/fantasy bingo? For those of you like me who aren't massive Reddit nerds, every year r/fantasy has a bingo card, and unlike normal bingo cards, you have to try and fill out the whole thing, not just 4 in a row for reasons that are unknown to me, and each square has a specific prompt. You have to try and read a book that fits that specific prompt, and there is also a hard mode in case you really hate yourself. Now, I haven't looked at the r/fantasy 2025 bingo up until, well, soon, so we're going to see if somehow by accident I complete my bingo square. So the first square is Knights and Paladins, and the goal for this one is to have a book that includes a knight and paladin. The hard mode is something that contains oaths. So let me dive into my TBR and see if I have anything that somehow fits this. For some reason, they run this from April to April, which just makes looking through my TBR really hard for this. So whoever decided that you do it by financial year, go fuck yourself. We're already off to a flying start because I have this one ticked off with The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow, which I read this year. This is about this weird scholarly dude, and also, crucially, a knight who has made an oath to her queen, and our scholar jumps backwards in time to meet this knight and to kill her, in theory, or to ensure that she dies in the right way. And things ensue. It's very well written. It's a really fun read, and more importantly, it completes this bingo square with hard mode. I'm incredible. I'm getting slightly ahead of myself, but that's a good start. How many squares are there? Oh my god, there are 25. I thought there were going to be 16. It's going to be a bloody long video, I'll tell you that much for free. That took me like 10 minutes to find. We're on to the second square, which is Hidden Gem, which means a book with under 1,000 Goodreads ratings. And the hard mode is it was released prior to 5 years ago. So this may be tricky for hard mode. I think I've got easy mode covered fairly easily, but let's go a diggling into my TB, having read finished books, and see if I have completed this second square. Yippee. Okay, well, we failed the hard one, but the hard mode was stupid anyway, because why does it matter when it was released? Okay, some of these have like 100 ratings. In 5 years' time, they're not going to have 1,000 ratings. Go screw yourself, whoever decided the hard mode for this one. The hard mode makes more sense as something with under 100 ratings. So for this one, I've changed the hard mode to under 100 ratings and completed it. So we're 2 for 2 on hard modes, having adjusted them slightly to make them more sensible. I don't actually know what I'm going to pick for this, because there were so many options, because I've done this like 8 times, because I'm a god. We are going to pick Sunwolves, which has 7 Goodreads ratings, so screw you, 1,000 Goodreads ratings. You got screwed. I keep saying screwed. This is a fantastic little novella by a friend of the channel, Ink and Tome, link down below, but I'll probably forget. Totally unbiased review. This is actually a very, very strong novella. It's about a girl who is accused of blasphemy and flees from her abbey and comes across this band of total heroes, total legends, with this wonderful found family element running through it. Highly recommend checking this one out. And we will move on to bingo square number 3. Oh god. Okay. Published in the 80s is this one. I think the 80s is a time period of fantasy that is horrendous. I don't know what happened in the 80s, but there was a real sappage of quality out of the 80s and into every other time period. So the chances that I've read something from the 80s are not necessarily high. But let's discover whether I read something from the 80s or not. the hard mode is written by an author of colour. So I actually did read a few books from the 80s. Did I like any of the books I read from the 80s? No. Were any of them by authors of colour? Also no. So that's our first hard mode fail. Second, if you do the actual prompts that were given to you rather than changing them in order to accommodate what you've read, which I feel is perhaps fair. But I am 3 for 3 on the actual main bingo squares. And for this one, let's pick Perfume by Patrick Suskind, which is about a little sniffy man who goes around sniffing things. And it's not particularly exciting, which is surprising because Sniffy Man should be exciting, but Sniffy Man was not exciting. The next bingo square, number 4, is high fashion, and I don't know what the fuck that means, so let me go read the description. What the fuck is this? Read a book where clothing/fashion or fiber arts are important to the plot. Piss off. This can be crafty main character or a setting where fashion itself is explored. Hard mode, the main character makes clothes or fibers. What? Who the fuck comes up with this? What kind of sadistic-minded dickhead? What the fuck? Apologies if you're sensitive to swearing, but I'm pissed about this. So, I looked through everything I've ever read in the last year and found nothing. And then I went onto the thread where people recommend books that you should read in order to meet these. And someone had mentioned Emily Wilde, which is a book about this woman who goes around essentially studying fairies as an academic. And someone also mentioned Someone You Can Build a Nest In, which is about this monster, kind of, who lays a nest in people. And to be honest, do I remember either of these having fashion in them? No. No, I do not. However, apparently, some people think that they are acceptable to meet this bingo square. I don't know if they meet the hard mode. I'm probably going to go with no, because I don't even remember them having fashion that relevant. So we may give up at hard mode at this point. It's not going well. But we are 4 for 4 so far, if you count this one, which I'm going to, because someone else has, so I don't know. And it's a stupid fucking square anyway. Can we talk about that? What an idiotic thing to put as a square. Furious. On to square 5, and if you're playing bingo like a normal individual plays bingo, this would, if I complete it, get me a full row, and I would win the bingo. Unfortunately, I somehow need to get every square, which is stupid, as I've mentioned. But nonetheless, this one is called Down With The System, which, I don't know about you, that's every fantasy book. Isn't it really? What fantasy books aren't about taking the system down? So I think I'm going to have a very easy time completing this one. And the hard mode is not a governmental system. I don't know what the fuck that means. Like an IT system? Okay. We're giving up on hard mode. Hard mode's stupid. I kind of did hard mode, chat. I think maybe. I don't really understand hard mode, but I kind of did hard mode. And I'm going to pick Dungeon Crawler Carl for this, because Dungeon Crawler Carl is about this dude, his cat. They're in a post-apocalyptic game show where they need to essentially survive in this dungeon game show fantasy thing. Very D&D-esque. It's a lit RPG, which is fantastically written, but throughout the book series, as Carl gets further and further down, he is trying to take down the system which has placed him in this TV show. He's not very happy about being a TV star. Princess Donut, on the other hand, his talking cat, is a massive fan of being a TV star, and she is also just an icon generally. Regardless, he wants out of this TV show, and so Down With The System, I think it counts. You could argue that this TV show is run by governments, and so he is kind of taking down the government. So really, it doesn't really fit hard mode, but I think hard mode is stupid, and so I'm gonna say I've completed hard mode for this one as well. And we have our first row. I'm kind of surprised that I have accidentally done pretty well here. Let's see if this continues. Long may it. I don't think I've actually stretched at all. I think I've genuinely, authentically complete each square so far. So, feeling pretty good about myself. Somehow this is an ego boost. I don't really know why, but it appears to be. First square on the second row is impossible places. I don't know what that means. You don't know what that means. So let's go read the little description where it tells us what that means. Well, this one's pissed me off a bit. So, it is a book set in a place that would break physicists. So, the geometry is weird. The area inside is bigger than the area outside, a kind of TARDIS effect or something like that. I don't think I've read anything like this. I don't want to see what hard mode is, but let's see what hard mode is just in case. Okay, hard mode is at least 50% of the book takes place within this area. And I was kind of imagining the whole book needed to, so now I've discovered that it doesn't need to. That is a very good sign, isn't it, really? It might be easier. I don't think it will be, but it might be. Maybe someone with like a magic handbag that's got lots of area in. I don't know. I don't know what we're looking for. Okay, for this one, Discworld works, right? Because Discworld is set on the back of 4 elephants who are on the back of a turtle, and the world is also a disc, which I think would piss physicists off, if I'm being honest. Although I think physicists would probably quite like Pratchett, because physicists maybe have a sense of humour? I don't know. But I read Small Gods recently, and it's another excellent entry into this fantastic series. My Discworld reading has slowly slowed down as I realise that I am running out of Discworld books, and I know that when I finish the series, I'm going to cry like a little baby because there will be no more Discworld books for me to read, and I will be sad. But if you like funny, satirical, incredibly written fantasy, go and check Discworld out. Also, do subscribe because I have coming a full guide to Discworld that I've been plotting in my little head, so that will be coming at some point in the future, and it will be very exciting for you and for me, and hard mode also, because Discworld all happens on the back of a disc, so I did hard mode. Go me. The next square is a book in parts, which I don't know what that is, so I looked at the little description, and it's literally a book with parts in it, which I feel is most books. So this was stupid. And a book with more than 4 parts is the hard mode. I've definitely done this. I can't remember whether the books I've read are split into parts or not. And frankly, I can't be bothered to go back through all of them. But I've definitely done this. Both the hard mode and the easy mode. This was like, I'd say more than 50% of books are split into parts within the fantasy genre. So this was stupid, and I've done it, and I can't be bothered to work out which books are split into parts. I'm currently reading Book of Fallen Leaves. That's split into parts. So there you go. Have that one. Happy birthday. Gods and Pantheons is next, and I love a little Gods and Pantheons book. Well, gods. I don't actually know what a pantheon is. Is it? I think it might be a collection of gods, potentially, or a place that gods live. Don't know. Maybe the description will shed some light on the situation. This hasn't helped. In fact, this has raised questions because the easy mode is a book with divine beings in, and the hard mode is that there are multiple pantheons involved. So now I need to work out what the fuck a pantheon is. I was right. It's a group of gods. So presumably multiple groups of gods, as in multiple religions are involved. I mean, the obvious one to pick here is Small Gods by Terry Pratchett, which also fits hard mode because there are lots of gods. Now, I'm aware that I picked this for the impossible places, but I've read other Discworld books longer ago. I just picked that one because it was the most recent, and I didn't know Gods and Pantheons was coming up. So Another Discworld book will go in Impossible Places. I can't remember. I've read some Tiffany Aching earlier in the year. I can't remember exactly which ones. So that's ticked off fine. Small Gods can tick off this one. We're adjusting as we go. You know, we're being adaptable. I'll mention this in job interviews as I'm adaptable. And let's move on. Last in a series is next. Do you think they count standalones for this? Because in that case, I've done this many times. I fear they may not count standalones. I fear they may not. Okay, the hard mode is that the book is in a series that's 4 or more books long, which, I'll be honest, I was expecting. I knew it was going to be, it must be of a certain length, but I thought it would be a lot of books, and 4 isn't that many. So I finished the Dark Tower series this year, and that, for those of you unaware, is, I think, somewhere behind. Oh, it's up there. And this is Stephen King's more fantasy, less horror-y book about a man called the Gunslinger, Roland. I was going to say Roland Garros, but that's a tennis tournament. Roland of Gilead, perhaps? And he shoots things, and he looks for a Dark Tower for 7 books. Now, I know that men aren't as good at finding things as women, but the fact it takes this man 7 fucking books and he's still looking for a tower is incredible. Hurry the fuck up. Well, the next one is Book Club or Read Along Book, and I famously don't have friends, so this could be a problem. But we'll go and see the description and see what it says. Oh my god, it's worse than I thought. It is, read a book from one of their Reddit book clubs, which means I'm going to have to delve into what the fuck these Reddit nerds have been reading. I've sworn so much in this fucking video. Jesus Christ. I don't think this is going to be pretty, and I do think it's going to take me a while, which annoys me. Okay, when you click the link to the group reads on r/fantasy, it just takes you to r/fantasy. The hard mode for this was to participate in one of their r/fantasy read-alongs, which I obviously didn't. But one of the books that they read was The Poet Empress, which I also read, and I buddy read it with a bunch of people, and there's a video of me trying to discuss it with a bunch of far more intelligent people over on Preacher Reads Siz's channel, so you can go and check that out in the description. And a bit about this book, for those unaware, uninitiated fools who haven't read it yet. It's a debut. It's a fantastic debut, might I add, about this woman. She's growing up in a village, very poor area, and she essentially offers herself up as a concubine to this evil emperor in order to try and save her family. And it's an excellent, excellent debut. And more importantly, it takes off a little square on my bingo, so that makes me happy. I see why people do this, actually, because you go, ooh, I ticked that one off. But I don't know why they put effort into it, because I've done all of these without trying, so... I say I've done all of these, we're 10 of 25 down. But 11 is... parents. What the fuck does that mean? Read a book where a main character has a parent to care for. I actually really like this in a book, and there's not a lot of it in books at all. I definitely have some in my mind. I don't know if I read them in the last year, so we're going to find out. The hard mode for this is that the child is also a major character, so that's not going to be easy. So the book I was hoping to include, not only did I not read in 2025, I also didn't read it in 2024. I read it in 2023, which I think goes to show how crap my memory is. And also, I'm not looking forward to finding a book that fits this, but we're going to dig in. I have a backup plan, I think, but I've kind of already mentioned it, so I want to avoid it if possible. Never mind. I dropped my phone. I'm a genius. I read Saga Volume 12. Saga, for those unaware, is a fantastic series of graphic novels. Are you allowed graphic novels for this? I don't know. I'm allowing myself graphic novels because Saga is incredible. It is Romeo and Juliet. If Romeo and Juliet were a little bit smarter and instead of killing themselves had a child together. I think they're like 12 actually in the book, so pretend they're older. And they've had a child together. Instead of being boring humans, they're fucking aliens in space on opposing sides of an intergalactic war. And this series is essentially them raising their child, so it also ticks hard mode. Killed it. I also read The Road by Cormac McCarthy of We Need a Novel, which is about a man and his child and a fucking road, and it's very dull. I appreciate that it's well written, but it's not very interesting. So if I need to use either of these later on, then I can just untick the other one from this box, if that makes sense. I've given myself options to use them again. Epistolary is next, and I don't need to dig in because I believe Frankenstein is an epistolary story. I have wiped it from my memory because I was very bored during it, but I'm pretty sure it's epistolary, so tick tick for that. I'm not going to go into what Frankenstein's about because I feel as though you know. I am going to check what hard mode is, however. Hard mode is just that it's told entirely in the epistolary format, so big tick for Frankenstein. Good job, me. Let's move on. Published in 2025 is next. Let's see what the hard mode is. I read Mercy Tears of the Fallen by Chance Dillon, which is a sprawling political fantasy, and he is a debut author. Actually, the only debut author I read in 2025. So we had a little bit of a close call with this one, but we got it ticked off. And I'll link Chance's channel in the little description. There's a lot that's being linked down there, and not all of it will make it into the description, I'll warn you. So just leave a comment and tell me what I missed out, and then I'll add it in retroactively because my memory is terrible. Tick, tick, hard mode, easy mode, done. I'm incredible. Moving on. And I think we are now halfway there. And I've done all of them so far. So, I mean, this is very detrimental for my ego. Like, incredibly detrimental. Watch me fall at the final hurdle too, and then I might cry on camera. No promises, but I may. Next one, author of color. Easy. Hard mode, less easy. A horror novel by an author of color. Horror novels aren't something I typically read. However, I did read The Reformatory last year, so wonderful news. That is a horror book by an author of color, and this is, I call it a horror book because it has ghosts and paranormal elements in it. The truly terrifying part of this book is actually just the white people, because it's set in the US a few hundred years ago. Not even that long ago. It felt like it should have been a few hundred years ago. It's actually set, I think, in the 1900s. I'm going to check the exact date. It's set in the 1950s, which boggles my tiny mind, because this book is quite a tough read because the racism is horrendous. It's essentially about this school where kids who have done something marginally wrong are sent to. The school is haunted, and the head teacher and the teaching staff are genuinely horrendous people. It's a tough read. I'm glad I read it. I'm not rushing to reread it because it's not necessarily fun. The 15th square, so the end of our third row. I'm killing it. Self-published or small press. Definitely have this. So the hard mode is that it has under 100 Goodreads ratings. I vaguely remember using this as a hard mode earlier on for something that it wasn't the hard mode for. And perhaps I used some derogatory language towards the creators of the bingo card. And for that, I would like to apologize mostly. But we're picking a different book for this, and that is The Galactic Open by James Coyle, which is set in space, and it's about space racers, not as in Russia versus the US racing to space, but people racing like Formula One style in spaceships. This has 10 Goodreads ratings, so definitely fits into the hard mode category. And with that, we have somehow completed 3 rows. I don't know how I'm doing this. I'm genuinely surprised. So our next square is Biopunk, and the hard mode for this one is that there is no electricity. And for this, I have The Tainted Cup and A Drop of Corruption, both by Robert Jackson Bennett, which is a biopunk, obviously, murder mystery where we have a protagonist, and then we have this legend icon, kind of Sherlock and Watson-esque dynamic, but our Sherlock is this iconic woman who is just like kind of a nutcase, but a genius nutcase that everyone has to put up with, called Anna, or Anna, don't know how we're pronouncing it. Icon, legend, a carrier of this series, essentially. 16 down, 9 more to go. Let's keep going. Elves and Dwarves is the next one, and the hard mode is a book with an elf or dwarf as a protagonist. I'm feeling a bit nervous because I have recently been steering clear of stereotypical Western fantasies, and that's exactly what they're looking for. I have read a few generic fantasies that I'm just going to include for this. I'm pretty sure that one of them will have elves or dwarves in. I've had a Google, and Google seems to think that they have elves and dwarves in. Do I remember them having elves and dwarves? Not necessarily. But my brain isn't very good at remembering things, and so I'm putting it down to that. But we have Of Blood and Fire, which I wouldn't recommend because it's boring and generic, but because it's boring and generic, it probably has elves or dwarves in. We have Memory, Sorrow and Thorn by Tad Williams. Probably has elves and dwarves in. Much stronger, by the way, than Of Blood and Fire. Still not incredible. We also have Ranger's Apprentice, which I'm fairly confident had elves in it. I'm fairly confident. But between those 3, somewhere there will be elves and dwarves. None of them have elves and dwarves as a protagonist, so we failed hard mode. But I'm 99.9% sure that between those 3, we've ticked this square off. Our next square is LGBTQIA protagonist, which, yeah, like everything I've read is gay. So, tick. The hard mode is that they are marginalized in another aspect of their identity. So for this one, we're going to go with Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler. Our protagonist is kind of bisexual in a way. She's also black, and she also has another very important aspect of her identity that is a bit unique that I won't get into for reasons of spoilers. Check the trigger warnings if you're going to read this one. That's all I'll say. Next up, we have 5 short stories. The hard mode being that they are an anthology of short stories, which I feel like is how you read short stories anyway. At least that's how I read short stories, so kind of is a given. But for this, I'm going to go with Stories of Your Life and Other Stories by Ted Chiang. This is a sci-fi short story collection. It's very compelling, and it has a real mix of different stories in here. Stories of Your Life, for me, was a highlight, I would say, and was adapted into the movie Arrival, I believe. which is also a brilliant movie. Not as good as the short story, but highly recommend checking out this work of science fiction. It's really, really well written. Next bingo square is Stranger in a Strange Land, which is, of course, a Robert Heinlein book. I'm hoping the bingo card isn't to read that specific book because I haven't. This one, they want a book that deals with a foreigner in a new culture, and the hard mode is that they are an immigrant. Ministry of Time is my pick for this one. It doesn't meet the hard mode, but it meets the easy mode really, really well. This is about a government ministry that set up the Ministry of Time, obviously, and they go back in time and pluck from right before their deaths a few various historical figures from various time periods. They bring them forward into the future and they try to reintegrate them into modern society. It's a pretty well written book. It's not fantastic, but I found it quite an enjoyable read, and it's a super interesting concept that works really well for this bingo card. And with that, we are 4 rows down. We've only got 1 row to go, and I'm really hoping I don't fall at the last hurdle. The next one is Recycle a Bingo Square. Can I be bothered? No. So this is Recycle a Bingo Square from a previous year, 2015 through to 2024. So I'm going to have to go searching for 10 years of bingo squares. I'm not impressed by this. And the hard mode is to do the hard mode for that bingo square. It's a lot of effort. This is a lot of effort. Okay, some wonderful Reddit user has compiled a list of all the previous bingo squares. They haven't included the hard modes, but one of the things on the list is sci-fi, which I've read a lot of sci-fi. I've been using sci-fi for the bingo square because r/fantasy is a kind of sci-fi fantasy Reddit, so I figured that's fine. I don't know what the rules are. Maybe they say. Hang on. Okay, I've checked the rules and you're allowed to read sci-fi. So having a whole square that's just read a sci-fi book is kind of crazy, but they had it in a past challenge. I've definitely read sci-fi books in the last year. Shall I pick one? Let's pick one. Okay. Death of the Author, I read recently. I reread. In fact, I've read this twice in the last year. So, I mean, it counts very easily. And this is a near future sci-fi. It actually reads a little bit more like lit fic, but it's not. It's sci-fi. So, I'm counting it. It's about an author who's very down on her luck, and she decides, instead of writing her usual book, to write a sci-fi novel. And this sci-fi novel is interspersed really, really cleverly within the book itself, and you kind of flip between the POVs, although the primary POV is, of course, of the author of this sci-fi book. Fantastic, fantastic book. Really, really. I mean, there's a reason I've read it twice in the last year. It's because it's incredible. Okay, we have 4 squares next to go, and the next one is cozy sci-fi fantasy, and I love a cozy read, so definitely going to have done this. Let's see what the hard mode is. Hard mode is an author who's new to you. I read The Phoenix Keeper recently, which is a gorgeously written book. It's so cute. It's not amazing in terms of quality, but it's very comforting and very cozy. And this is by S.A. McLean, who's an author I wasn't familiar with. And it's about a zookeeper who is in charge of the Phoenix section of this fantasy zoo. And there's definitely a romantasy element to it. So if that's not your thing, obviously don't read this, but it's really low stakes, gorgeously written. I adore the main character, and I think I read this at a time that was just right for me. That meant I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed it. Okay, the next section is generic title, which essentially means any title that includes any of the following words: blood, bone, broken court, dark, shadow, song, sword, or throne. Plural is allowed, and the hard mode is that it contains more than one of the listed words, or at least one word and a colour. So for this one, I have picked Children of Blood and Bone, which contains both blood and bone, so that's hard mode ticked off. And this is a West African inspired fantasy book set in a world where magic has disappeared. It's YA and I enjoyed it fine. It didn't particularly overwhelmingly impress me, but it also wasn't bad. So I think I gave it about a 3.25, a 3, something like that out of 5. So it's a decent book. We are down to the last 2 squares, and our second last square is not a book. I don't know what this means. This is what it seems like it is, and it is do something other than read a book. I do other things, guys. Not often, but once in the last year I have in fact watched a movie, which is crazy. But instead I'm going to talk to you about a TV show called Pantheon. This is based on Ken Liu's short stories, The Hidden Girl and Other Stories, I believe it's called, and fantastic series of short stories, but the adaptation is incredible. It's a animation that is not particularly gorgeous in terms of the art style, but the way in which the animation is used is incredible. It's set in a world with uploaded intelligence, that is to say, instead of a human dying, they can upload their mind into a computer, and it brings with it a lot of philosophical discussion, because is that then still a human? Is that the person that you knew and loved, or is it some foreign being, some thing that you just don't know? Really, really interesting premise, fascinating TV show, brilliant set of short stories which it's based off of. I don't hear enough people talking about this, but it's super well worth your time. Our final square is pirates. I knew this square was on here, and then I forgot because, and I don't know if I've read anything piratey in the last year, and I'm genuinely terrified that I have done 24 out of 25 bingo squares, and the last square is going to kill me. And the hard mode for this is pirates who aren't sea pirates or something stupid that I definitely haven't done. What the fuck is that? Okay, so I was hoping I'd have live ships for this. Live ships I read in 2024, so I definitely don't have it. The best I can do is The Princess Bride, which does have pirates in. They're kind of off-screen pirates that then appear on screen. If you've read The Princess Bride, you know what I'm talking about. Pirates are mentioned in The Princess Bride, and therefore I'm counting it for this bingo card. Is it a little bit of a stretch? Perhaps, but I genuinely don't think I could bear getting through the first 24 squares and then failing on the last one. So I'm going to say it. I'm going to say I've done our fantasy bingo. Not hard mode. Didn't get close to hard mode. Hard mode was kind of crazy at times. And I genuinely... What the fuck was high fashion? I've still not recovered from high fashion because that was horrible.